going to call this meeting to order. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Welcome to all. We do have an important item that we have to get out of the way at the beginning of this meeting. And we have to go into executive session to do that. So I'm going to make a motion, be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to adjourn to executive session at 6:01 p.m. from this regular meeting of 11/26 is authorized under Ohio Revised Code 121.22G for the purpose of the consideration of, number 3, a conference with the law director and other retained counsel concerning pending or imminent court action.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes. Into session at 6:09.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
We have no announcements that came out of executive session, so we will get back to our regular agenda. You have the agenda before you. Are there any corrections, additions, deletions from the agenda? Okay.
You know, I might have one. I want to bring up the yard waste.
Concerned trustees.
Concerned trustee.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, the agenda will stand as edited. So the first thing that we have is the sheriff's monthly report. Who's going to give that? Sergeant Koenig. Yeah.
Good evening, everyone. Before you should have the October 2019 monthly report. Our calls for service were at 1475. It was about 11% down compared to 2018. Our crashes were also down. We had 68. Our crashes with injury were up slightly, 22%. We had 11 total for the month. And our alarms jumped up a little bit with 107. Our traffic stops continue to increase. We had 224 traffic stops for October. It was an 18.3% increase. Our citations, we had a total of 139. Our arrests jumped way up compared to 2018. We had 78 total for the month. And our officers conducted 162 vacation checks. Detective Ross had 16 cases assigned and had 8 of those closed for the month. Should have the yearly, since we started doing this in we got 2014 through the current year, and then our 2018 to 2019 comparison. Any questions or comments? Okay.
Well, the numbers are looking good.
Yeah.
See a lot of activity.
Yeah, like I said, you see calls for service slightly down, but our proactive police work is still making that jump up and positive compared to where we were last year. I continue to see that trend.
And that's because of the hiring for the passage of the levy.
Yeah, with our additional officers, they're a little more available to be proactive in the areas that we need them.
Yeah,
Mm-hmm. Yes.
8 bodies additional makes a big difference.
Yeah. Yep.
And the 2 sergeants.
More people on the street.
We help. We're a fan.
Yeah.
All right, thanks, guys.
Okay, thank you. So, is there anybody in the audience that has any concerns that they want to address the sheriff with while we're in this portion of the agenda? Anything at all that the sheriff might be able to either answer your question, or if you have an issue, they'll be able to at least get started on it tonight. Anybody? Okay. So, yeah, we can do that now. So, is there going to be a spokesperson for the group, or a lot of people going to talk? Yes, no?
If it's a single individual,
We'll wing it. I mean, I'll begin, that's
Okay,
fine.
so if you want to stay where you are, you
Sure.
can do it. If you feel comfortable coming up to the podium, that's fine. The only thing I ask is that you give your name and your address to our fiscal officer, just for the record.
Sure. My name's Jerry Seeger. My husband and I live at 5955 Linder Circle, right down here, Sherwood Village. We, over the last several years, have had issues with the next door neighbors. They are renters. The house is owned by Danny Cool. And, I mean, we've had a number of issues with the dogs. They actually do breed the dogs, and I have evidence to prove that finally. I've been to the zoning office to talk about it. A number of us have made calls to the sheriffs. They can probably report what's been going on over the last couple of years. Really concerned with everything that's going on next door to our house.
Can you please get specific, because just talking in generality does.
Sure, a
Does
lot
the-
of barking with the dogs. I've seen up to a number of 14 dogs in the yard. There's pens in the background, in the backyard. Over the years, during the summer, there's been a smell from the excrement from the dogs. The barking has been out of control at times. They have recently gotten collars, and the barking is less. That's really obvious to, I think, several of us that are here, and we appreciate that. But at the same time, the renter, Chris Armstrong, and his girlfriend, Julie Trustee, he especially has been open to us that he is a breeder. I have evidence finally that he is. He's making a lot of money on they're American Bullies. He has a website. He has a Facebook page that shows that he not only sells the puppies, but he also sells the semen. So he actually does have a business. I know the health department has been contacted, concerns about different things going on in the backyard. The dog warden, I know, has also been called. Just concerns if the dogs are properly cared for over the last couple of years. Does that help?
Yes.
Okay.
Absolutely.
I mean, anyone else can also add.
Because with that type of information, he is operating a business out of his home, which he does not have authority to do so through zoning.
Correct.
Doesn't he have to have a license to have a kennel?
Well,
Not from the
Lieutenant-
Zoning.
not through zoning. Lieutenant Carver, do you want to touch on that? Because we talked about that a little bit. Are the dogs kept outside?
Yes.
Or is it,
Combination of both.
okay, all year long
Yes.
outside?
He's running a business.
Yeah.
We can give him that.
So we've been dealing with this the last couple of weeks. Since you guys reached out to the township, I've been over in the area, I've talked to some of the neighbors. We have been out to that residence numerous times. We've issued several citations under the noise ordinance for the barking. I can tell you, in the last 3 weeks, I've gone through that area and spent some time in that neighborhood about every day. I haven't experienced the barking personally, but some of our guys have experienced it, that they've issued the citations. There's some other investigative tools that I can't go into detail with right now that we're working on to approach it from some other angles. But we have had folks from our wardens division come out and take a look at things that the Humane Society's been out as far as the living conditions for the animals to make sure that those are okay. From the side of them having a kennels license and a vendor's license, there's some other investigative tools that we're looking at to approach that. As far as the kennel license, there's some regulations of the number of how many animals are going through there. That takes some investigation to figure out what kind of volume is he running through there.
Yeah, so we've been kind of working behind the scenes on that, because we don't want to tip our hand. But I think the issue, the way that the board can tackle it is, and Tom's out tonight, is it is a home-based business and he doesn't have a permit. So I'll talk with Tom in the morning and we'll start that process of notifying him that he's running a business without the proper permit.
How about if we, could she make contact with you And then we'll gather some of these things that you described,
Yes.
and then we can actually check into all of those.
Yeah, because
And then-
he'll have to come before the
Yeah,
zoning board
correct.
to ask for that, and you're gonna wanna be at that meeting.
Yeah,
Because they ask for anybody who is for this change, anybody who is against, and they're gonna wanna hear from each and every one of you. So if there's neighbors not here, I would, and you'll get notification of that meeting, you're gonna wanna attend that.
We will get notification.
And I
So
would
for
agree.
Because I'm gonna go get one of my cards, and we're
Okay.
gonna,
Lisa, for clarification purposes, for the sake of the public, Board of Zoning Commission or Board of Zoning Appeals? Because there's a difference in the process where if it goes before the Board of Zoning Commission, they will render their decision, which then gets forwarded to the Board of Trustees. And then we would take their decision under consideration. We can either support the recommendation or we can modify it if it comes through the Board of Zoning Commission. However, if it goes through in front of the Board of Zoning Appeals, they make the decision and it's done. It's not going to advance any
Right.
further to us, so I'm just trying to help.
but
You
either
understand
board
this and
will
frame it.
ask for input.
I know, but what I'm just saying,
Correct.
Right, but he's right, he's saying.
because the
Yeah.
last thing from a constituent's point is, you come here and you think, okay, hey, they've made the decision, it's done and over. Oh, no, it's gotta still come before the trustees, or it's in a situation where it doesn't come before the
Right.
trustees
Yeah.
because it's the BZA.
Right,
We need to ensure there's clear
Yeah.
understanding here.
yeah.
Actually,
Suzanne Garver, 5915 Linder Circle Northeast. I came before the zoning commissioner a couple years ago, and our property is zoned both residential and rural. Does that make a difference?
No.
No.
at this point, regardless of that classification,
Yeah.
it's
still
residential, whether it's rural, essentially what it has to do with is the parcel size and so forth.
yeah.
And I've also been asked, most townships, they don't, if the dogs are kept outside, that's when I've seen townships taking under advisement and putting in any sort of legislation about how many dogs you can have. When it's inside, I haven't found any, but if they're kept outside, I have. So that's something else to look at.
Does Plain Township have any type of regulations, anything on the books about pets, how many pets,
That's what
keeping
she's
them
talking
outside?
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about.
That's what she's talking
No, most
Is there
townships don't.
anything about pit bulls, about vicious dogs such as other municipalities have?
Well, let's clarify a couple things here.
Yeah, we don't.
Comparing municipality to township form of government, it's not gonna work. Municipalities have certain powers granted to them by the state legislature that the townships have, so that doesn't necessarily mean that, hey, we don't like dogs, so you're only allowed one or two. I'm also gonna tell you, even though this is in your backyard right now, we have a responsibility to take a look at this, not just from your perspective, but the entire township as a whole. So we're gonna be taking a look at the metrics of how many complaints across the township, what's reasonable. So, I mean, those are gonna be some of the factors that would come in, but what Lisa's saying here is she's found some statutory language in some areas that will be taken under review.
If the dogs are kept outside, which
Yeah.
it sounds like they are, that there could be the possibility of limiting that number.
Well, really, the number,
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
Jim. I'm
Name
sorry.
and address, please.
Yeah, Jim.
Sorry, just for the record.
Yeah, Jim Seeger, and you got it. I think I speak for myself, I think I speak for all the state. I don't care how many dogs he has. And in fact, whether he is legal or not, that's his business, that's between him and the law and all that. Really, it's the barking dogs. I mean, I don't care if he has dogs or not.
Right.
You know, that neighborhood is, you know, there should be, I think, a peaceful neighborhood for retirees and for some newer families with young kids and stuff. And I mean, I think that's the whole beef behind this. You know, when you get woke up in the middle of the night, you know, and these guys know back here, I mean, it just wears on you. I mean, it's been going on for a year and a half. Now, I've spoken to them many times. I mean, and my wife's correct. I mean, last month, it seems like the barking has ebbed some. I guess he did get some sort of collar that has some control or whatever, but that's all we want, a little bit of peace and quiet. Because here's the thing, it's been going on, people, a year and a half, okay? At least. You know, if another year and a half, we probably won't be Plain Township residents, and I'm not saying that it's just, why put up with that? Why put up with it, you know what I mean? I don't think we've ever been late on our taxes or anything, we're just common people that want a little bit of peace.
Jerry Seeger here again. Another thing I'd just like to add is the safety issue. We have had at least 4 incidents in which at least one of his dogs has been on our property. The latest was when I was dog watching a friend's dog, and their female dog came over, and I was horrified. These dogs are huge. And he had his music blaring. I screamed and hollered at least 4 times to get his dog off my property. He finally turned his music down and came over and got the dog. I was petrified. I really thought this beautiful dog I was watching was going to get bit and mauled. We have two children that have dogs. They're adults. They do not feel free to have their dogs run in our backyard, and we have a large backyard because of the fear. Because they're not always in the pen, they're sometimes running free, and sometimes, yes, they are attentive to their dogs, but they have been on our property. And that makes me very sad that my own kids cannot have their dogs running in our backyard. It is a beautiful backyard. We don't enjoy it anymore. They're barking, the smell, it's been awful. We have a patio, we've sat on it twice this summer, if we were lucky. And I'm sorry, I'm just sad about it, very sad.
That's the health department.
It was, I did, but,
We'll kind of,
yeah.
just let her talk. Yes, ma'am.
Kim Burns, 5960 Linder Circle. Do I have to give any more information?
No,
That's good.
that's fine.
I just want to back the Seekers up. I mean, I'm sitting among my neighbors that have been wonderful neighbors my entire life, adult life has been on Linder Circle. My children have been raised there. These people are the most calm, loving people. They watched my children when I went to work. They are just wonderful people, and we are so sad on Linder Circle to see anything. We feel like we're living the American dream here. We have a beautiful house. Everybody keeps their neighbors, keep their yards up nice. We put money into our homes to keep them updated, and I feel like we're ready to move, and we don't want to. But these are very calm people here, and they don't get out of sorts very often. I've never known them to get out of sorts over anything. We've always discussed things in the neighborhood that have been happening, but we are beside ourselves. This is not a 45-minute barking session. This is hours of barking, hours. Where I give the test, if I can go in my house and go to the furthest spot in my house and I can still hear the dogs, that's ridiculous. And this is hour upon end. And I mean, I see neighbors that are so tired that they can't even put a sentence together because they're not getting their rest and they have to get up and go to work. I mean, we need some help, some direction. I know that other HOAs, I've checked Washington Square, I've checked Wellington Woods, the sanctuary, which I know is not in Plain. But they have dog rules. They have 2 dogs per household. They have,
Do you have a
homeowners
homeowners
but
Yeah.
maybe we need one.
And with all due respect to
Maybe
Asia,
we need one.
a homeowners association is a subset below zoning to where those are deeds, restrictions, covenants that the township can't enforce. That's where an active homeowners association really does come in, and actually a couple that you've rattled off, just for general purposes. Unfortunately, we could probably show you where we've got a list of, I'm gonna say 13 to 17 HOAs in the township. I'm willing to bet there's a half dozen or less that are actually active, because most folks don't wanna deal with some, I mean, this is a serious issue.
It
Don't,
is,
but then you get into some of the petty BS that nobody wants to deal with.
right, right.
It's unpaid, and then trying to go out and collect dues, the whole 9 yards. We won't go too far down. That's why a lot of them have essentially become inactive
I see.
or not effective, but,
But here's the issue with that, if he's already got the dogs and you start an HOA,
well, if they,
It feels
if there's an
like-
existing.
it'd be
Right.
grandfathered. I
Right.
think, this is gonna drive you insane. When they are barking like that, each and every time call the sheriff's office. Because we're gonna be working on some things in the back, and I know you're gonna feel like, oh, I don't wanna bother them, you're not bothering them. Call every
We
single
also have a
time.
running at large ordinance.
Yes, we have
too,
dogs
so
running at large.
It's not just the barking. If they get into your yard, you call the sheriff.
Yeah, and snap a picture
Right
on your
away.
phone, because
I
if he
can
gets
do
him
that.
back,
Yeah.
snap a picture.
Yeah.
I do know that the dog was loose, and I have 2 little Shih Tzus. I mean, they're always in our yard, but they were actually on their leads, and the dog came running across the Seeger's yard, and I was petrified, just like Jerry was.
Yeah,
I was petrified. I ran and got my dogs,
yeah.
and I mean, that dog was coming up, and, you know,
Yeah,
I
that's
just didn't know
awful.
what to do. I actually just like froze thinking, what am I gonna do? You know, because I've got 2 of them.
Yeah. I think the way that it can be addressed is through the zoning board. And then,
That's-
I'm gonna get a card right
Yeah,
now.
Make sure you all, even more than this,
Okay, we
come
can
to
do that.
that when it comes in front of the zoning.
We will be doing that.
They need to hear this. A lot of times that they overturn from just the power of the people, and that's what you need to do.
And then
When
also your
this comes in front of, I think it's gonna be our board of zoning.
Is there a date for the next meeting?
I'm sorry?
Is there a date for the next?
Not yet,
board?
we're gonna set
Okay,
it based
thank
on,
you. Okay, thank
Tom
you.
Farrar getting the information and when those boards
Okay.
meet.
You'll get all
But
that
we're gonna,
notification.
So,
Or check back with us.
maybe we can summarize this. First of all, thank you all for coming. Because sometimes there are issues out there that we don't actually see, and we've dealt with some crazy ones that, you know, we look at them and say, I can't believe somebody is doing that. And then what we have to do is evaluate, how can we make that go away in the future? And then we have to, you know, do all this hoop jumping to make sure that it's legal. So, first of all,
process.
we've heard you loud and clear over this issue. So the first thing that we're gonna do is go after the business that's being run in a residential or a rural residential district. That's illegal. So we're gonna push that, we'll seek that, and then we're gonna work with the sheriff's department. And again, the best advice that Lisa gave was call, just
We have,
call.
yeah, we'll continue.
So, you listen to those sheriff's stats, those are also the reason why those sheriff's stats are so high, because they are active. So, you know, they're gonna be familiar with that address, by the way. So, they've been there a few times. But we're gonna work on that issue from a zoning standpoint, and then, see where we can go from there. We may have to introduce language that for the future, we put a limit, but like Lisa said, that the people that have those now may be grandfathered, okay? But we're gonna look at all of that, okay?
So just for clarification, Jerry Seeger here again.
Sure.
So the proof that I have sitting with me, you don't need at this point?
I would actually give it to Lieutenant Carver.
Okay.
He has some stuff too,
Yeah,
Okay,
but I'd give it to him.
okay.
Yeah.
but we're gonna start first on that zoning issue. That's good, that's, and Tom Ferrara, our zoning superintendent, was excused tonight. He's not here, but,
I'll talk to him.
yeah. So we'll make sure we start there, because that may lead to some of these numbers going away. So if you can't produce what he's trying to do from a business standpoint, he might have to go somewhere else to do it.
That may be
Yeah, if they
the thing.
decline him that
Correct.
If he
business.
gets, yeah.
Correct.
He just may be going elsewhere, absolutely. If he declined, can't run it.
Anything else?
Yeah.
Anything else? So, if you feel like you want to stay for the rest of the meeting, please feel free to do so.
But thank you.
You'll see exactly all the technicalities of how government is run, but if you feel like you've got all your issues and concerns out, you're welcome to either stay or leave. It's up to
Thank
you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for listening.
Of course.
You're welcome. Well, we're not only listening, we're gonna do some work on that as well, so thank you for coming. Okay, that takes, is there anybody else with anything for the sheriff?
Well, Tracy Rohr, 2514 Clarendon Avenue Northwest, Canton. I don't know that mine's kind of between Canton and the Sheriff's Department. I live by the Hall of Fame, 4 streets up. I'm still Plain Township. They've annexed all the streets behind me. It went from a week and a half of Hall of Fame events now to probably 2-3 events a month. And like they said, the peace and quiet. The noise level from the stadium when they had that Black College Hall of Fame game at 1 o'clock in the morning, music was playing so loud, all the lights were on down at the stadium. It sounded like a concert was next door. I knew nothing was still going on. I finally got in my car and drove down. Every light was on, nobody was there. It must have been the employees. They were blaring music over the loudspeakers. And when they see me get out of my car, they finally shut it off. This was 1 o'clock in the morning. The day of the Massillon-McKinley game, it started at 7 a.m. in the morning. The street behind me had literally a band, someone playing in their yard from 7 a.m. all day long. The house beside me on Clarendon and 25th that bordered the fire station, loudspeakers blasting Eye of the Tiger for Massillon. Every event, there's all this noise going on, and I don't want to be petty and call the sheriff, but we have to put up with all the noise. No noise ordinances are enforced because it's all these events going on, but since they're becoming so frequent, and you hear it with your doors, windows closed, I don't know who I can contact in Canton. I tried to call the day of the Massillon-McKinley game down the Hall of Fame, and they said you'll have to talk to security for the Hall of Fame. They put me through, went straight to a voice message that said you couldn't leave a message. So I'm not even sure who, because I know the deputies are on the corner doing security. I know they're at the substation across the street, but yet all the noise goes on around us, fireworks down there at midnight. There's no rest from it, like they said. I work long days, and the nights when I'm home or the weekends, I get tired of putting up with all that noise.
Well, Tracy, I know you and I have talked in the past on
Yeah.
different things and worked together on stuff on the whole Hall of Fame
Right.
development, stuff was going on. The challenge is this, and I'm not making excuses, where the violation, as long as it's occurring in Plain Township, our guys will take care of it. The challenge is we have made multiple calls over the years, and every time, even as an elected official, staff, we promise we'll notify you of this, we'll notify. It does not matter who has how great of a relationship or how poor of a relationship with anybody in the city of Canton. The whole Hall of Fame Village project,
Right.
unfortunately, it's like a blind eye is being turned
And
to it. And I mean, when I say good relationships, we've picked up the phone and we've talked with the mayor and the deputy mayor and some of the other folks down there. And even through follow-up, they approach us typically about, no parking signs on like Hall of Fame week. Still, did we get them this year for the Massillon McKinney?
That was the
No,
only one,
they-
they did not put them up, and
The
people
sheriff
did,
or the
people
whole
did
thing
park
never
on the
asked
street.
for
Yeah,
the sheriff and the mask.
yeah, that's the only day they parked all
They did
over
for
the
Hall of
place on
Fame.
the
Now, we
street.
already passed a resolution for the playoff.
The state's got it up here in a couple weeks.
But that's only on our streets. That's
Yeah,
not on our
correct.
streets behind her.
Yeah, this was the first time there weren't signed up for the Massillon McKinley game. Every
Nobody
other time,
requested them
yeah,
to
you
be,
guys put
so.
them up, and they were parking all over the place, yeah. But it's more so the noise. There's no barrier since they tore the houses down. They have no desire to put up anything, and we're just, I mean, I was to the point I was ready to call David Baker myself if I could get hold of him. I'm just tired of all the noise coming from down
I'd
the
be happy to
street.
share. I wonder if I've got it.
So we can't enforce.
Cannot there.
As soon as it gets to the jurisdictional authority line, we can't enforce the noise that somebody else is making.
Only on the street, like Clarendon, that still belongs
Correct.
to.
So we could enforce that.
Okay,
So anything at all that would be in, that noise would be coming from Plain Township, we can enforce that.
okay. Just not the rest, okay.
But I think based on the fact that she came here, we still need to correspond with them to let them know
Yeah, I did
what
know,
the logistics of all that's going on, because that's absolutely absurd that that music was still playing
oh,
well
at 1
after
AM
the
in the
game.
morning, that's why I got my car to see where it was
That's
coming from.
disrespectful,
Yeah.
that's just absolutely disrespectful.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, that's what I said, that's why I finally got in my car, because I was gonna call the deputies, and I wanted to see where it was coming from, because I'm like, there's nothing going on down there at this time of the day.
When did that happen?
that was more
It
towards
was-
the summer.
Midsummer,
Yeah.
late summer.
Labor Day weekend.
It was
Yeah,
like
okay.
September 1st, yeah. And they were long gone from the game, I could just still see the lights, and at first I thought maybe someone was having a party with the music, so I got in the car and drove down there and seen where it was coming from.
So, I mean, from a multitude of things. One, the Hall of Fame, I mean, has to have some type of, I think we need to have direct correspondence with them, even though they can thumb
I
their
do
nose,
too.
even though they can thumb their nose at us, I
Yeah,
think.
they could tell us forgive.
Combination of Kevin Shiplett would, because Kevin Shiplett, I think still VP of operations over there, as well as
Still there.
Dave Baker. I think those two individuals. Secondly, we need to have a separate communication while CCing in the Hall of Fame Village sent to the mayor, the deputy mayor, and the police chief of the city of Canton.
And if it would help, I'll go to a meeting for Canton, I just didn't even know who to reach out to, where to go.
What's that?
They would be helpful.
I'm trying to think what word that is that butts up over there.
It'd have to be at a council meeting.
Yeah, what part is that?
To find out what ward it is.
I'm just openly thinking out loud here. Just between reading headlines and the whole 9 yards of how the Hall of Fame Village is treated over there, I don't know how well received attending a council meeting.
Right,
You know, you may get lip service
right.
is the extent of it, but I would also, by going there, it does put you on the record of the concern. I guess, just as you and I have worked, I think in the past, I don't know, maybe
Yeah,
it was
you
you and I or
guys have
something.
been so
There was a
helpful.
petition where I know there was a number of neighbors in that area that
Yeah.
expressed concern over other things, whether or not there's even a list of neighbors that you could present them
Okay,
with.
yeah,
I know
because I have a lot of.
It's time, it's
elderly
energy, and
people.
it's effort, but, I mean, I think some of the heavy lifting is by this board with the hall, by this board with Canton City leadership. That's not to say that they're gonna say, okay, hey, yeah, because, you know, clearly the Hall of Fame is upside down financially. There's no beating around the bush on that. I'm not gonna paint a rosy picture for the sake of it, but those events and that programming is also bringing in much needed revenue, so that's probably
Not gonna stop, right?
creating our limited view with some blinders on there. I would encourage you, let's see, if we can have a communication to both of those drafted now by the, well, say the mid part of next week, just know Thursday, Friday with Thanksgiving. If you want to circle back, we can provide you.
Okay.
But Tracy, just give me
And
a,
I-
did you get one of my cards? You can,
Yeah.
just give me a call,
Okay.
and I'll get some information, and that way then I can get your email and copy you on what I
Right.
send, and Eric, will you grab our card?
I believe she has
Oh, you have one.
And then,
Yeah, that does happen.
Thank you.
actually, Joe has pointed out some unusual things that in
Yeah,
that,
I
in
was
that
gonna
letter, we
include
want
that
to
in
make
the
sure that any
Parking
event
for
that's
any
going
event.
on over there, that it appears that it will be infringing on our residents' quality of life, whether it's parking or whatever, we need to be able to put those signs out, but we can't put them out
If we're not.
if we don't know it.
Right.
But see, we have to do that by resolution. We can't just arbitrarily
Right.
go out and hang up signs. We literally have to do that as a business item here. And we do that routinely with those routine events that we know are gonna take place. So I'm just thinking that, you know, somebody over there dropped the ball because, on the playoffs, we got it, so.
Oh, yeah, that's the
yeah.
only time I've lived there, it'll be 9 years, and you guys have always had them up. That was the only time I didn't see them, and people really took advantage of parking wherever they wanted to
Sure.
for the game.
But
Yeah.
if we don't know that, event is going on, then we just
Right.
don't know to be able to go out and do that. But,
Yeah.
so, yeah, in that correspondence, I would like in some way, when those events go on, regardless of what they are, if they're expecting any kind of crowds, we would at least like the courtesy that we can help our residents as best we can with some preparation. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And since we're on your subject, do you care if we address the other couple issues you had? We'll just get it over with
No,
now.
I would love to, because I've been, seeing where they annexed all the streets behind me. I've seen where Clearview just went too, and that concerns me, because I know we discussed that before, when we had all those Hall of
Yeah.
Fame meetings. They were only gonna annex as they bought the homes. Well, I know they bought a few homes on Clarendon, so my question is, are they just gonna annex my whole street, which then makes me Canton City without any kind of notification of buying my home?
Well, first and foremost, on the annexation front, they would have to enter into a mutually agreeable transaction to purchase your property for an agreed upon price. You can't be forced, I'm gonna start out at this level, you can't be forced to have to go on. Now, that being said, I'm gonna hedge my comment here with the fact that if, say they bought all the parcels around you, and then the hall, and this is a situation where we've talked through it before, the hall would probably try to compel the state to allow them to take it by eminent domain, that being the state, because the Hall of Fame does not have the, no, hold on a minute.
Yeah.
The Hall of Fame themselves cannot
Correct.
take that, but the state could if they made a determination that for the economic benefit of the greater community, they could. What you would have on your side for what it may be worth is, we're still your representative, and no different than I can tell you with the Route 62 realignment project, how much stuff's going on there. We've listened, and you won't find anybody that's been more vocal with the state than us on some of this stuff. We'll take them to task the same way. And, in that example with 62, we told them, hey, everything you've got here is a horrible idea. Here's why we're telling you it's horrible. Here's the alternatives that we're recommending. Using that same type of mindset and approach, we would absolutely
Fight for us, not
fight
the
that
annex.
same.
Okay.
Now, that's not to say that the state's not gonna thumb their nose, and I'm not, you know, inferring that upon anybody, but the state could ultimately say, hey, you know, there's too many government entities that now have their hand in this over there. Fortunate or unfortunate for us, we're not necessarily one of them. You know, Canton's taken out bonds/notes to turn around, take taxpayer dollars and donate into that village project. You know, down in the state legislature, they've created a special taxing district for the Hall of Fame village to, you know, be able to bring additional dollars in to help fund that growth and so forth. So at the end of the day, they may take a look and go, well, hey, what do we have here in Plain Township? And I don't want to oversimplify it, but well, Plain really doesn't have any, but well, we do have a vested interest. We have our residents and we have our businesses over there. And I think ever since I've been a trustee, I've always said we've got to do everything we can to preserve, protect, and grow our business base where it makes sense, because being a heavy bedroom community, whether folks want to hear it or not, you got to have these businesses to help offset that tax burden, or else the residential tax burden, if you think it's bad now, it's significantly worse without the commercial base, because, you know, whereas for every tax we pay in, or for every dollar we pay in taxes, to a residential neighborhood, it's about $1.20 to $1.30 to deliver the services, whereas when you're dealing with the business component of it, for every dollar you collect in taxes, it actually costs about 60 cents to deliver services. So that helps offset. So just big picture, you know, dollars and cents, there's financial stakeholders, government entities in on this. And I know it's been a couple of years since we had done that meeting over
Right.
Station
Yeah.
3. Just as we said then, we continue to fight and keep atop of it. You know, given where construction is right now, essentially non-existent. We don't get the, what was it, Joe? It used to be weekly or like bi-weekly job site construction manager updates. I mean,
There hasn't been one of those in over a year.
yeah, and given the nature of it. So that being said, when you look into some of the just general events and stuff that's going on, I mean, we'll pay attention. I know I pay attention, you know, whether it's Canton Chamber, you know, you get stuff through leadership or, you know, the paper, but sometimes by the time we find out about some of those events, as John was indicating,
It's too late.
to
right.
get them up, I would tell you, I feel pretty confident in saying this. If we knew something was coming up and we needed to call a special meeting just to pass a resolution to get, you know, say no parking or something in place, we'd absolutely do it. It'd be one of those, hey, can you meet midday at noon to come in and take action on this pretty quick?
But on the annexation, would I get notice before they're, so that like me and the other residents
Of
could?
the neighboring
Yeah, that they're
properties.
even thinking of annexing us ahead of time.
Actually, every parcel that's annexed, the immediate adjoining property owners have to be notified. That being said, what the city has done, because we've been vocal in the past and been crucified for it, to a point that I won't apologize for, is there's a type 1 annexation and there's a type 2 expedited annexation. Type 1, they pretty much take the ground and they take the tax dollars, the whole 9 yards. So, you know, essentially, hey, Plain, if you'll be nice or you'll be good over here, we'll do these as a type 2 expedited annexation. So, yeah, technically the property's still coming into the city Canton. However, you're maintaining the property tax base for a number of years on a declining schedule. So, you know, it's not that, I don't know how to say this. We continue to pick our fight.
Yeah.
Continue to pick our fights, pick them wisely. That's been the closest we've been able to get to something. But that's also not been at the, hey, we'll do type 2, you guys keep the property taxes. If you do, you know, turn a blind eye, that's not gonna be the case. I think there's enough individuals down there that, you know, this team's not gonna turn a blind eye to it, so.
And we could fight that if they would say, you know, they're gonna annex us.
Well, they,
residents.
you know, the hall can't, the city of Canton cannot, as long as you're a Plain Township resident
And the homeowner.
and a homeowner,
Okay.
neither the Hall of Fame nor the city of Canton, because the only way the city of Canton could ultimately annex it is if you have sold the property through a willing transaction, then the Hall of Fame owns it, then they can do what they want with the property. But where the unknown element is with the state, because the state's created this tax overlay district, and they may go, hey, the net economic impact to the state of Ohio and Stark County, sorry, Mrs. Rohr, but you know what? You either need to take this offer, or we're gonna eminent domain, which they still, at the end of the day, lawfully have to give you a reasonable value. So what's happened over there, for generalization purposes, is there were premiums paid on a number of those houses over there to try to get folks to, you know, say you've got a $100,000 home, and hey, they're coming in, they were spending, you know, 10 to 20% premiums on those, and that's where, that was the compelling,
Selling factor, right.
yeah,
Yeah.
but, you know, ultimately, it would be if the state comes in, at this point, who that would be.
And we wouldn't have any notice. for
You would
something.
still, you should, there should still be some type of legal notice. They can't just
Okay,
come in and say, hey, we're taking this, and then you're like, hey, you got 30 days to get out. No,
okay.
there would definitely
Yeah, the closer they're getting, like when they, you know, annexed the street behind me, I'm like, geez, are we gonna be next? Because I had known they had purchased some of the homes. you know.
I think that's where the original footprint stopped.
Okay.
Exactly where they're at right now is where the original footprint
Okay.
stopped. So we've also had other issues that we wanted them to annex, simply because they own the property on both sides of the street. We still had the street. Our road department had to go over there and plow and salt on a street that we didn't have any residents on.
Yeah, it was bad.
And it was because of how they filed the paperwork, and we contested every time. And finally, after enough noise and pushing the right buttons, they cleaned it up. But again, some of that's a challenge down there of their left hand not knowing what the right hand's doing, so. I know it's frustrating, but know that, we've noted the letters. I didn't see anything else on the,
The only thing, and I'm sorry, I'm not trying to take up the whole meeting, the same problem 5 years later, it never did stop on Mr. Kuntz's property. I'm just getting tired again of putting up with it. They're operating another landscaping business out of there and have been ever since that Petrarca left. And there's an auto business over there. They run air compressors. It sounds like a large air compressor generator. It was running 5:30 this morning. It'll run 11, 12 at night. And then November 17th, last Sunday, the Sunday before, I woke up at 5:45 in the morning. It was a Bobcat loading for the landscaping company into a truck, you know, hearing the beeping, backing up. And I do have video of it on my phone. So they've continued to use that as businesses over there. And it's just, it never quit. I'm just getting to the point where I'm tired of putting up with that and that noise again from over there. Diesel trucks running all the time. Mr. Kuntz never did what the letter said.
I'll work with Tom on that one.
Okay,
yeah.
okay, thank you.
Sure.
do you have anything else, Tracy?
No, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anyone else that
For sheriff.
wishes to address the sheriff or has issues for the sheriff? Okay, seeing none, we are going to move on. We have no unfinished business. That takes us to new business.
Thank you. I'll handle item number 1 as Tom is out this evening. It's a resolution to set a hearing date to consider the Board of Zoning Commission's recommendations for zoning resolution text amendment 574-19 and 575-19, both dealing with skill games. And that will be on December 10th at 6:15.
I will move on new business number 1.
A second.
It's been moved and seconded, discussion. We are simply looking at moving these into a higher or more restrictive zone area.
Industrial too, as well as making sure the language is cleaned up to match the Gaming Control Commission language.
Okay, anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Item number 2 is a resolution by the Board of Trustees to authorize membership to the Coalition of Large Ohio Urban Townships for the year 2020 and authorize payment of $200 from Fund 01A26E.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion.
I think since Heidi Fout has taken over, or is taking over the executive director position there, she's worked so closely with townships. I think this is a year that we could actually see some pretty decent benefit from cloud. At the OTN meeting that I was just at, we were talking about some cloud issues, and I think that we're going to see a little better action than in the past.
And just for the sake of the public, what this is, as Lisa said, Coalition of Large Urban Townships. Of the 1,308 townships that are in the state of Ohio across the 88 counties, a majority of them are very small, rural, agricultural areas. They're not like the Plains, the Jacksons, the Lake Prairie Townships. So the legislative needs tend to be a lot different, just based upon resources that we have available or need available to us. So there's a lot of legislative stuff that we'll get monthly notices on, looking for folks to come in, testify, or provide testimony to support on. So that's what it goes towards.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yeah.
And that ends new business.
Thanks, Lisa. That takes us to the fiscal officer's report. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you. Fiscal Officer number 1 is a request for resolution to authorize payment for pending warrants in the amount of $686,968.35.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Just, again, this is higher than normal because of combination, just the insurance transfer,
Yeah,
the rotary, our normal rotary fund payment to the
Yes.
sheriff's office.
yeah.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 2 is a request for resolution to authorize payment of regular payroll in an amount not to exceed $250,000.
I will move on fiscal officer number 2.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 3 is a request for resolution to authorize payment for the following medical claims.
So moved.
Fiscal officer.
For second.
Mr. Lino moved. Mr. Haas seconded. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 4 is the investment report for the month of October. Our monthly interest was $34,982.88, puts us at $228,249.03 for the year.
Great job.
Fiscal Officer number 5 is the annual liquor permit renewals and your opportunity to object to any of them if you have any concerns.
And the sheriff's office didn't have any concerns.
Okay.
So I'd say we'll move forward with those.
Okay. Fiscal Officer number 6 is a request for a resolution authorizing the township to purchase and use employee dishonesty and faithful performance of duty policy through OTARMA instead of individual surety bonds for officers, employees, and appointees who are otherwise required by law to acquire a bond before entering upon the discharge of duties.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. This is pretty good protection.
Yeah, it protects the assets of the township and it's a little more efficient than bonds
Yes.
on every individual.
Sure. Yeah. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 7 is a request for resolution to authorize a refund as follows for overpayments for EMS as requested by Ohio Billing.
So moved.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 8 is a request for resolution to authorize the following transfers.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Fiscal Officer number 9 is a request for resolution to authorize the Plain Township Fiscal Officer, upon approval, to submit the attached record retention schedule to the Ohio History Connection State Archives per Ohio Revised Code 149.381B.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
That concludes the Fiscal Officer report.
Thanks, Tom. That takes us to the Administrator, Ms. King.
Thank you. Item number 1 is a resolution to authorize an approved payment for one 2020 Explorer Interceptor from Wickham Auto Family at a cost of $35,887 plus a 45-day tag from Fund 21A02M.
So moved.
Seconded.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
First, I want to point out, it is being purchased from the capital fund where we set aside monies for vehicle purchases. We did have the cruiser that there was the very bad accident with, and the insurance company has taken, not ours, the person who caused the accident, has taken full responsibility. We actually kept the car, we haven't scrapped it yet, but I'm going to have a resolution to scrap. So part of it will be paid for by what the insurance values it at. So you won't see this total coming out. But this allows us now to finally have one vehicle per officer, which will help keep our mileage significantly lower than how we have been rotating, and it'll get that last charger,
Out of
which we saw out of service, which needs to happen.
Nice.
Good.
Very good.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
And then item number 2 is just what I talked about. It's a resolution that we can sell, the board can sell scrap if it's valued under $2,500. And all said, it truly is the way it is right now, and the bid number is listed.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
It's going to sit for a little until I get a check in hand from the insurance company. If there's any bickering back and forth,
Yeah.
that vehicle's going to sit there until we get what we think we're deserved.
Okay. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Item number 3 is a resolution to agree to the proposed extension per the attached letter for the current policing agreement with the Stark County Sheriff's Office for Plain Township Policing Services until such time as their union negotiations are completed.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
It makes sense to stay at our current agreement. It's obviously going to be, I don't see any sheriff deputies taking a decrease in pay. So the only thing we're going to see is, an increase. So it truly benefits us to, stay where we're at. So.
Again, just for the sake of public, we opt not to have our own police department. It's one less union contract agreement to have to deal with. Our friends at the sheriff's office get to deal with that. It's not having additional capital investment, facilities. Everything stays out the sheriff's office. If you were to compare us to, say, Jackson, which is still not fair because they've got a heavy commercial base, we are probably
$5 million less.
Yeah.
easily.
Is it more than that?
Oh, yeah, it's
Oh,
significantly
we're talking
less.
contract only
Yeah.
for, okay, I was
Oh, yeah,
counting
yeah,
everything,
it's-
yes.
They're close to 12, they're like
Yeah.
12. I think we're about,
Yes.
it's 8 to 9, it's
Yeah,
8 to 9
it's more
million
like
dollars.
9 million. Yeah,
Because
I
our
was counting
total is a little
vehicles.
over 3 million, that includes dispatch,
Yeah.
with dispatch.
Oh, and that includes vehicles and upgrades and replacements, so yeah, if we're talking staffing only, it's, we pay about 9 million less.
Well, yes.
And I think we have better policing, so.
Look at this guy.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
The next resolution is to adapt accept and adopt the updated public records policy.
So moved. Second, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Yes, I changed time that the office is open for inspection to 8 to 4:30 instead of 8:30 to 4:30, and also added a section about electronic records and how to treat those. So it's just a global update.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
And then the next resolution, I have it under administrator because the funding is from the general fund, but I'll have Rob present the resolution and take discussion.
Sure. So the resolution is to authorize and purchase payment to Home Aquifer Inc. for a Kubota zero-turn mower in amount not to exceed $17,700 paid from Fund 01B06A.
I will move on. Administrator number 5.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion.
Yes, so we have one of our mowers that's actually been down for over 2 months with a radiator issue. They're older, they take on a lot of wear and tear. The cheetahs that we are currently operating under are great finish mowers. They're not real durable when it gets into the tougher climates of abatements and even the hills sometimes of the parks. This Kubota is 8-gauge steel. It's got wider, stronger, bigger tires.
It's a diesel
It's
versus
a diesel.
It's not
And
gas.
the motor is actually manufactured by Kubota, so everything's in-house, one-stop shop. The service is great. We struggled with some service with some of our other dealers. And it's got big axles, kind of integrated and suited for the tougher environments. It's got a deck that offsets a little better, so you get into the tighter spots around trees and playground equipment, et cetera, et cetera.
And we went for safety more than
Speed.
speed because, you know, the city of Maslin had that horrible death with
That's
a
it.
mower flipping over. And we do encounter some grades, and so, you know, the goal was to go for a safer mower versus one we can get for a couple thousand less.
And it is not the most expensive quote that
No.
we got, and they actually, if you look at the quote, chopped off darn near 5,000 of the original pricing of the order by December 30.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yeah.
And that's the end of the administrator report.
Thanks, Lisa. That takes us to Fire Chief Schaumburger.
Thank you. Item number 1 is our monthly report. And we have a couple pictures there from fire prevention breakfast, and our MRD run that we help with, and doing CPR training at the high school.
Nothing significant.
No, calls about the same as far as our average, and response times right around 4.
Number 2.
Let's scroll up here. All right, and item number 2 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to authorize reimbursement to Ron DeFrancisco in the amount of $400 for healthcare membership according to provision 37 of the collective bargaining agreement.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yeah.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Item number 3, and I'm trying to scroll this down so you can see it at the screen at the same time.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff on there.
Yeah,
Get to the next
unfortunately,
one.
there's a lot of steps to that process. So, item number 3 is a resolution by the Plain Township Board of Trustees to purchase one 2019 Morgan Olson 17.4-foot walk-in step-in van from Auto Park Fleet in the amount not to exceed $58,000 to be taken from Fund 10A08.
So moved.
Second. It's been moved and seconded. Discussion. So this is going to replace
Our red truck,
Yeah.
truck.
Yeah, this is going to replace the 1988 GMC.
I was going to say, that was
truck.
mid to late 80s.
Yeah, and it served us well, but we're starting to see some wear problems on it, and this will help us expand our confined space rescue stuff, because we have a tripod in there now. This will have some shelving in, we're gonna basically take the inside of that truck, convert it into the new one, do some lighting and all that ourselves, and try to save some money, so we should be able to get that thing converted over.
Some of us weren't born.
That truck is so old, my predecessor bought it.
And we use it for changing for water rescue, and also if we have some kind of a big event in the township, we can use it as a command post and some other things, if we would have to.
It's been at a variety of events all the way across the county, so this gets a lot of use here and other places.
That's something.
Roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes? Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
And item number 4 is resolution by Plain Township Board of Trustees to reimburse Terry Kagi for $400 for healthcare membership, according to provision 37 of the collective bargaining agreement.
So moved.
I'll second it.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion? Roll call.
Mr. Hawes?
Yeah.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes. Thanks, Chuck.
Concludes my report. Thank you.
That takes us to road, Mr. Iacino.
Yes, Mr. Chairman, item number 1 is the monthly report for October. If you have any questions, glad to answer them.
No, nothing in de-icing. That was good.
Yeah, say it, we broke it. Should have said it.
I'll
Why did you say
I'll
it?
take responsibility for that.
Here it comes.
We'll know who has what effect on the weather here after.
Okay, anything special besides that?
No,
Move to the- All right. Number
Buildings
2.
going up. Number 2 is a resolution authorized payment to Stark County Engineers for the Plain Township's participation in the Whipple Avenue resurfacing project, not to exceed $25,000 from Fund 11B3.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
This was something we were approached at
Yeah, we had
almost
signed
a year ago, the agreement, so this is just the
Yeah, this
finish line.
finally sent us the bill.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Number 3 is an agreement with the city of Canton, for the Plain Township to enter an agreement with the city of Canton Water Department for the installation of a new storm sewer line at or near the intersection of Taft Avenue Northeast and 26th Street Northeast. The agreement is attached.
I will move on road 3.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded. Discussion?
The Canton City Water Department on Harrisburg, this is the back of their property. They have some drainage issues and they're trying to clear them up. They have a right-of-way that leads to Harmon Avenue, which goes straight down to Taft to 26th Street. They are gonna do all the construction, pay for all construction. They're gonna add a couple basins to help us. After it's all done and inspected and passed, and then we'll take over maintenance. But this is also tying into the project that we did with them. Well, we've been here, Lisa, 12 years.
Yeah,
12
14.
years ago, if you guys remember.
Oh, yeah.
Don't give me years, it's 14.
So, it's just going into that large.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just a collaborative. And
Yeah.
That's always kind of been a problem area there anyway, so this is going to help. Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Item number 4, I guess there's a lot of people want to talk about the speed signs on this township roadways. I have gotten a price, as you can see.
Yeah, we've had, and I'll take over, we've had issues with several township roads. The first is Firestone, which we're all aware about. And I've asked Lieutenant Carver to stay and talk about, and I know he's gotten information to the board about Firestone, and it is an issue, and they do give a lot of tickets there, and it's a safety concern. And I said, give me your dream top roads, talk to your guys, along with Firestone, just to kind of consider the impact this could have township-wide, because these aren't for neighborhoods, they are expensive now. There is a different price we can get through state term to make it a little easier. But they suggested, after talking to the guys, was Firestone, Martindale, Westmoreland, 20th, and Schneider, and then they had some backups too. So this isn't something that would go in a neighborhood. This is similar to what we see in North Canton. And,
Two on Market Avenue. in the
yes,
city.
yes.
Martindale, we would do a county road.
No, they were just giving me roads. So with that, Lieutenant Carver, I think you made some phone calls. Did you get a hold of anybody?
Yeah, I've spoken with some folks over at Kansas City, they've got several of them over there. It definitely affects traffic in the areas where they're at, they slow down. Does it really affect them once they get far beyond there? We don't really know that. It's another tool in the arsenal. We've increased traffic enforcement in some of these areas, particularly the folks over on Firestone. We see you guys out there all the time, we see you stopping these cars, as soon as you're gone, they go right back to doing what they're doing. It's one more tool just to consider to try to help with some of this.
Yeah, and our thought was, and we don't have a resolution tonight, it was for discussion for the board, is, you know, maybe do a test pilot on Firestone, because these also collect data like our speed buggy does. So maybe that's a road to consider, to kind of do a test pilot and see, is it working, to get the sheriff office's thoughts on it. Because this road, we hear about all of the time, and some of these others, but by no means am I saying by 5 tonight. I'm saying have discussion. It's one, maybe let's put it somewhere and see how it goes.
I think I've already said before, I think we need to have some predefined criteria, because this will become a beast in and of itself with,
Well,
you
I'm
know,
just gonna,
within the allotment, so you start setting precedents. And I know, based upon some of the feedback we've heard with Firestone,
Yeah.
it's during the peak traffic hours, along with some of the other areas, as a whole, what I would want to see done even before probably signing off on this is rotating that speed trailer around a couple, seeing what our traffic variables.
Yeah.
I know we've got some historical reporting, but let's get some more. And then, you know, the sheriff's input's definitely highly valuable, but, you know, we go long spells with nothing. And then we get one or two people that will say something. I want to see some defined criteria.
Yeah. Well, and I think I sent you the information from Lieutenant Carver, because I had him pull up the accident history about how many tickets they've given out. I think with each one, those are the things to look at. And I think, you know, we've gotten that, but, you know, whatever the board wants to do, if you want to put that back out at Firestone, it's been to Firestone a lot, but.
Oh, yeah, Lieutenant Carver has those readings, but we could always put it back out. I have it somewhere else this week, but we could add it to the schedule.
in Eric,
2 crashes in 18, there's nothing about
the concern
tickets
that I have,
in this, so.
and like Trustee Hawes just said, we're gonna owe it to our residents. Now, if we get, is this something we're gonna start buying? If we have somebody on Chaucer Avenue with speeding, but wait a minute, you have it at Firestone, why don't we have it at Chaucer? And wait a minute, you have it at Chaucer, why don't you have it on Bentler? And now all of a sudden, we're paying $5,000 for these signs. Now, how do we tell a group of residents who come in this largely and say, well, sorry, but we can only put them in certain areas, because you can't put them in certain areas. We owe it to our residents if they're coming here and complaining about speeding, and now we have these up. How many are we gonna buy? And is it something that we're just gonna end up having like 50 of these things at $5,000 apiece? That's the only concern I have. We need to be careful, because again, do we rely on Lieutenant Carver that this is an area that there's been a lot of serious crashes? Because we're gonna owe it to our residents. If they come in here with speeding, then we owe it to them that these need to go on their street too. If it's a constant nuisance to you that you've been there that many times with speeders, even Westmoreland's another one. That's my question. What are we
It's still your discretion as to where you would want to put it. You're right, you're gonna get the questions, But as far as any legal obligation, you don't have any legal obligation to put them anywhere.
Correct.
You can put them anywhere, nowhere, some places.
Yeah,
That's
and you still have the
completely
speed
within-
trailer
That's-
for neighborhoods, you still can use the
5,000
speed.
per sign, so you need two in any area, road area. Plus, if you are gonna get the one that collects data, that's an extra cost, because you have to get the software and all that.
And then you gotta buy two,
And you gotta buy two.
because you got two directions.
Right,
So you're never buying just
$1,000 extra.
one.
So you're looking at around 12,000 for a set. Yeah.
What's another speed trailer cost?
Say that.
At least I think we only paid on 7 or something.
Yeah,
like
that was
Yeah.
14 years ago though, yeah.
You know, for now, I mean, if you wanna do research, if we truly wanna do that right, and we get another speed trailer, we can put on the same street, one way, one the other. Now you're collecting all that data, time of day, day of the week, you know, all of that, now we have something to go by. Otherwise, you're taking that speed trailer, putting it here, collecting that data, pulling it down the road, turning it around, collecting that data.
3 days.
That one might be there on a Tuesday, that one might be there on a Wednesday, and you're getting inaccurate data.
Well, the concern is,
It's a timeline for Lieutenant Carver and his deputies
Sure.
to where it's peak. And I mean, it reports all that, so.
you're not gonna find somebody more sensitive, being a hit and run victim. And I'm not taking this lightly, but I'm also not gonna just carte blanche.
Oh yeah, there's no
Because-
resolution,
I mean,
and
yeah,
this was
correct.
just discussion.
Right,
For the sake of.
And I wanna look
That's why
into,
we're
I
doing
was at
this.
the county today, and the traffic engineer said they are in state purchasing, and I don't know what that price is. So
Okay.
we will look into that.
Yeah.
Um,
I would think we want, if we're gonna make that expenditure, we want something that's gonna give us data.
Yes, yeah.
Because, you know, to be able to say, just like the lieutenant said, with those signs, you'd be able to know whether somebody has sped up when they're not there.
Do not get back data from Browns Toast. They're just
Just
flashing,
flash
just
it.
slowing
Tell you
down.
speed.
Yeah.
Lieutenant Carver, do you have a way to, I think last time when we got the speed trailer, you guys had gotten us the quote. Does that sound right, that you guys would be the ones to get a quote on the speed trailer?
And that was before my time over at the township, but I
Can
do
you
have some
check?
contacts with the company that we buy the radars from,
Okay.
makes those. That
Will you check on
we
a
can get some
quote?
different prices for them.
Because you know what to ask for. That would be great, that would be helpful. So we'll get all the information back to the board. Thank you.
Anything else? Okay.
Okay. Item number 5 is a resolution for a change order to increase the amount of $5,000 to Classical Construction for additional concrete work on the interior floor of the new storage building.
So moved.
Second, it's been moved and seconded, discussion. It was just on there today, I guess.
We had to do a change order, there was broken concrete that
Yes.
we wanted repaired. But that's not going to, this isn't an additional charge on top of the bid. We were under that bid, so we're still way under the original bid that we opened the resolution for.
So we had to match up to some older concrete. So, yeah, some existing, so they matched up.
That makes sense.
So the building looks.
We just wanted to make sure that this was put on the record,
Yeah,
It's a beautiful building.
on the
Yeah.
record that we did do a change
Yeah,
order.
it's a great looking building.
Anything else? Roll call.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
yes.
Thank you.
And I think I just want to add under Joe, we did get the word from Dave Torrance about the traffic light. Next
Correct.
year at Brenton and Cleveland, we got the OPWC funding, so the fact that that's going to be bid July for next year, that should help address the long
I actually
term.
have the original signed agreement he gave me today in my office, commissioner's sign, so I'll bring it up here. I don't think we have to do anything else, do we? We already signed the agreement, so.
Yeah.
I'll open up
So since we do have a few people here, can you explain our agreement that we have with the county, using our building with an outpost with a truck?
Stark County engineers have requested, I don't know, last 6-7 years.
6-7 years.
Being that they maintain several roads through the township, such as Easton, Little
Little
Ranch, Apple Grove, that they put a truck here in one of our buildings So when they get called out and the drivers come out, they come directly here instead of either going from the airport or from South Road, Perry Road. So they come here, they can use our salt, they reimburse us, everything gets reimbursed, but they keep their truck here. At one point, there was 2 trucks, but they changed their route, so if it's not working in Plain Township, we're not gonna let them put it in storage. So we were using the old fire station down on Easton for the last 4 or 5 years, but things have changed. Our new storage run, their truck will be at the road department this year, and then, so they have a way to get their truck on these roads quicker, because any of you that live around this area know that Easton is a mess from one end to the other when it's up and down those hills. It's just too much. So that helps them get out. It's proven that it's helped over the last 5, 6, 7 years, and we're happy to be able to do it for them.
Well, otherwise, the reality is, I mean, for proximity, they're driving all the way over
Yes,
to Perry
correct.
Township.
All the way out to the
back.
airport,
And by the time they get in-
and they're not gonna rush over here.
We got somewhere else in the county now, buddy.
I think they
Remember
got
Dayton's?
one out
Yeah.
east somewhere.
Like with Marlboro.
Marlboro or something,
Yeah.
yeah, Lexington, yeah, so, it's worked out great.
All right, Joe, thanks. Good job. That takes us to zoning.
Thank you. I do want to point out, we are very happy to announce that Royal Docks Brewing Company is going to be opening in Oakwood Square. So we did meet with them, and they are very excited to come into our community, and we're excited to see Oakwood Square continue to blossom. So it will be very nice. So along with that is the monthly report that you have before you. You'll see that we still are getting in new residential constructions. We're one of the few communities that continues to grow and see a lot of growth. So that is a positive.
Yeah.
Any questions about the report? And that's the end of the zoning.
Thank you. Takes us to Parks, Mr. Steinberg.
Thank you. Other ones, the monthly report. I'll entertain any questions you have. Okay. Just a reminder, Winterfest will be Friday, December 6th from 6 to 9 at Diamond Community Park. Come out, enjoy our holiday tree lighting and some neat displays and activities, and it's fun for the whole family. We'll see you out there. Right now, the weather is a little chilly, but clear, so we'll take
It's
it.
always chilly though.
We'll take
It's
chilly.
always chilly.
Clear is the good thing, so we'll take it. Thank you, that's all.
Okay, Rob, thanks. That takes us to communications.
I said I think our sheriff's office is the finest, and I have a letter here to prove it from a resident. And she wrote it to Lieutenant Carver, and it reads, "Our security system tripped on October 17th, about halfway through our vacation. Your dispatch was able to connect me to the responding Officer Hewitt so I could learn what happened. Turned out it was a false motion trip, which is now fixed. Officer Hewitt suggested we get on the vacation checks provided by you. We were happy to learn of this service and immediately got on your list. This gave us a peace of mind, having you keeping a watch out for us. We did have family checking inside, but this just helps with the outside." And then there was some sort of small appreciation gift, so I'm looking forward to sharing cookies or whatever you got. And then the second one is also a thank you to the Sheriff's Department from about the nun run, and you'll see the picture of the nuns on there, and they're thanking the Sheriff's Department for helping with the nun run fundraiser for the Santa Clara Monastery, which was a success, and they are burning a candle for 1 week at the chapel for Clare nuns as a thank you, so very nice. And then the last thank you is to the fire department, to Bill Reed, and it's a thank you from the Great Pumpkin Race, which we had a host of people from the fire department volunteering there, and there were more than 70 event volunteers there, and they raised over $7,000 for Stark Developmentally Disabled Special Olympics, so that will help go a long way with that, so thank you. And that's the end of communications.
Thank you. So that takes us to the portion of the meeting of public speaks. If there's anyone in the audience that wishes to address the board with any issues, please feel free to give your name and address to our fiscal officer, and you can address the board. Anyone? All right, seeing none, we will move on to concerns of trustees. I believe you had this, Mr.
I do,
Lino.
thank you. Just for discussion purposes. I'm speaking of myself, but it's for the residents. At this time, I'm usually done with my leaves, and I'm not even near being done yet. The oaks are hanging on, and I know that in another 5 days, we're closing our yard waste. So just a concern that I have, there's gonna be a lot of upset residents because these leaves are still coming down, and they're just hanging on a little bit too long. So that's the only reason I'm just bringing it up to see if we're willing to extend it a little bit longer. She has a question.
Yes.
Linda Vonneman, 1717 31st Street. Actually, I was going to address that because I have a big oak tree also, and mine are just now starting to come down, enough that I got maybe 2 bags. My backyard's fenced in. They all end up in my backyard. Trash people won't take them unless they fit in the can, which those bags don't fit in the cans with your garbage. They won't take them outside of the can, so.
They're just hanging on for some reason.
Right, mine are still too. And it looks like around the neighborhood they all are.
Oak trees will fall.
Yeah.
I still have.
Say I've got 2
February,
neighbors
it'll still
now.
be falling, so.
But I mean, the blunt of them usually come down, because I have a couple of oaks that are completely bare, but there's a lot. Just a concern, because I have a feeling we're gonna get a call in 5 days, if there's gonna be tomorrow 50-mile-an-hour wind, probably coming down then. We got Thanksgiving, they're not gonna be able to get to their
What
yard.
kind of time are you thinking?
I don't know, a couple more weeks extension, I think might work, I don't know.
I mean, we're already bleeding from the
So-
funding. That's,
Here's gonna be the
It's a tough
issue.
call.
And unfortunately, if you read Lake Township last night, they're closing theirs. And they already realized that everybody from everywhere in the county is going to their site, because there's none left, okay?
Well, that will be.
So if we will be the only ones open in the entire county.
We'd get killed. I mean,
No, no,
you
the
can
money is
imagine.
already,
If that's the case, then we're
Yeah.
gonna be in trouble, because if we're the only one open, then.
I mean, they even discussed at their meeting last night how slammed they got
Yeah.
because of the limited locations now that people, they were getting them from Portage County.
yeah,
Wow.
and there's no stopping that. Yeah, because it's the joint district, so we have to take it from,
That's why
Summit,
we are,
Portage, Trumbull.
that's why we are
Start
moving
Tuscaloosa, yeah.
to have our own, so that only our residents will be able to use that site with a process of being able to have access to that site. So we won't be getting people from all over bringing things into this location, because that is just a mess.
John, they are closing theirs in Lake this weekend.
This weekend,
Yes,
or this
yeah.
weekend?
Yes.
Yeah, so we
We-
stay
we-
open.
I know-
Till,
yeah.
they're closed theirs
everyone else
till
is.
April. They're gonna open again for Christmas trees at
One
like,
week,
yeah,
one
like
week.
a week or something like
Just
that.
trees only?
Trees only.
We'll take care of that if we get those, we'll just chip them up.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
we don't get that many anymore.
We got like 5 last year, maybe.
If the Joint Solid Waste District would have done us a solid based on the funding they've
Yeah.
held back on, but.
Well, we just
I mean,
moved from that's right.
No,
You know,
We
it's
understand, it's gonna be our funds drinking too.
Yeah.
Sure, yeah, I'm just saying, we can prepare.
That takes us to the approval of minutes for the November 12th meeting.
so moved.
Second's been moved and seconded. Discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino,
Yes.
Mr. Saba,
Yes.
Mr. Hawes,
Yes.
We do have a need for another executive session. Be it hereby resolved by the Plain Township Board of Trustees, Stark County, Ohio, to adjourn to executive session at 7:36 p.m. from this regular meeting of November 26th as authorized under Ohio Revised Code 121.22G for the purpose of the consideration of 1B, employment of a public employee or official. 1F, compensation of a public employee or official. 2A, the purchase of real, personal, tangible, or intangible property. And 3, conference with the law director or other retained counsel concerning pending or imminent court action. It's been, second's been moved and seconded, discussion, roll call.
Mr. Lino?
Yes.
Mr. Sabo?
Yes.
Mr. Hawes?
Yes.
Okay. There we go. You guys stayed for the whole meeting.
I know you deserve an award.
Yeah, geez, we never had this many people at any to the end.
Well, we got,
Yeah.
I thought at least.
Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.
Thanks, same to you.
Thank you.
See, I have some.
Happy Thanksgiving, guys.
And you too.
Well, we're doing that neighborhood for a lot of years.